There's a lot to cover. I'm going to go over the capital projects that are going on Bolivar, give you an update on Rollover Pass, talk about Bolivar beaches, give you an update on the FEMA floodplain regulations, and then there's about 6 or 7 brief issues at the end that I'll try to blow through. And then I'll take questions on anything. Capital projects. There are a lot of them going on. We're building drainage outfalls along the north side of the peninsula. That project's been in the works a long time. It's been delayed about 9 months because of the environmental process that's associated with the grant funds. But thank God, that environmental process should be completed next month. The project is set to advertise and for construction in February, which means it ought to be under construction by summer. It's happening. High Island Emergency Shelter. We have a contractor in place and have awarded the contract to CTEX Construction. The construction cost came in at $4 million, which is about $1 million more than was originally allocated, so we had to reallocate money from other pots. We are moving forward. We are putting the finishing touches on the agreement between the county and High Island ISD regarding the terms of use of operating the facility. Literally within the last 2 or 3 days, I think we're about there, all but a few periods and commas. So I'm hoping that we'll get that finalized, that agreement, in the next week or so, and we ought to be under construction by December. Thank goodness. That's going to be a big emergency shelter. It's going to be situated within the school complex at High Island ISD, while we will use it as a staging ground for relief in the event of a storm. On a day-to-day basis, it will be a community center and a gym for the community of High Island. So that will be a tremendous blessing to that community. We're about to start construction on backup generators for the BP SUD. We came in about $100,000 over budget, reallocated money from other projects to cover the cost, about $1.3 million. Construction contract's going to be approved on October 27th by Commissioner's Court. Construction should start in November. Joe Ball here, I think you're here, Joe, somewhere. I saw Joe Ball earlier, I don't know. That will provide backup power generation to most or all of BP SUD's primary facilities, which is awesome. Keeps the water going. New Crystal Beach Road and Bridge building. Clayton and Lee are excited about that. I was over there. They are moved in. There are some punch list items they're working on. We have a separate construction project that's going to be carried out over the next, 6, 12 months, something like that. We're putting in a fuel system over there. There'll be a new fuel system. That's a separate project. But otherwise, the building's ready to go. It is beautiful. I told Lee, I was talking to him earlier, I said, you know, you can't let the road and bridge guys from the mainland come over here and see this thing or we're going to have a revolt, because it is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. A wastewater treatment plant project. It is moving forward. I met with the board of BP SUD last night, gave them an update. There is a lengthy environmental project. This is a huge project, very complicated regulatorily, long environmental impact statement process. The environmental is coming along. There was a very troublesome delay caused by site selection. We were originally looking at 4 sites. They did the environmental work. The consultants did the environmental work on these 4 sites. 9 months later, they said, wait a minute, you can't use any of these sites because they're all in V zones and you can't build this thing using HUD money in V zones. And we went and looked at it. Grant and I pulled the regs. We read up and we said, you know what, you're right, but we wish you would have told us this 9 months ago. So water under the bridge, the county does have a site. It's in an A zone. It's in an A zone under the current FEMA maps. It's in an A zone under the new maps once those go into effect, so the change in maps won't affect the site. It's big enough. It's on Noble Carl Road right next to the county facility. The outfalls are designed. The lines are designed. We're about 30% engineering design on the project. Literally this week I got the new economic model from him, from the engineer, shared it with BP SUD. Hopefully within the next month or 2 we ought to be a whole lot closer to project feasibility, but it does look like it's moving forward. We're continuing to work a number of environmental issues. I've been on lots of conference calls with folks from FEMA and the environmental consultants in Houston and et cetera, but it's coming along. The project area that this can be built in runs from Singing Sands subdivision to Monkhouse Road. It's a 5-mile wide project. That's defined by what we call federal COBRA zones, which are zones that you can't build in. So there's a 5-mile window where this project can be built. Within that 5-mile window, there is a single site that is both large enough and in an A zone that would allow this particular thing to be built. One piece of property, and that's it. And so it's dictated by the conditions that come with the money, the federal funds from HUD that are being used to build the project. But I know the engineers have looked. I know Nick Foster, who's our CDBG coordinator, has looked. I know they've talked to other local realtors and other local folks who are familiar with real estate. It has to do, there are several potential sites, but they're all in V zones. And the problem is the FEMA regulations don't allow a sewer treatment plant to be built in a V zone with federal dollars because it puts it at risk. The plant itself has to be within an A zone. And one of the challenges, we'll talk about this on the floodplain regs in a minute, one of the unique things about Bolivar Peninsula is there is almost no land within an A zone. Most of the peninsula is in a V zone, the rest of it's in an A zone, and there's almost nothing that's not in some kind of flood prone area. And so it just really restricts your ability to identify a site. And by the way, I inherited this project. This was not my idea, by the way, but I'm making it work. So what has to happen on this project, the framework for this is literally what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to buy the lines. We're going to buy the treatment lines from Bolivar Utility Services within that 5-mile stretch. And then we're going to chop them off from the rest of the bus system. We're going to connect them to the new plant that we're building. We're going to extend new lines off of the bus lines to every street and every nook and cranny within that 5-mile area. The private bus system will continue to operate to the east and to the west of this system on a private basis, but within the project area, on an isolated basis, will be the public wastewater system. And that public wastewater system will operate on a standalone basis as required by HUD regulations for 5 years, and at the end of the 5-year period, we can do whatever we want with it. We can reconnect the pipes, make the system whole. The public utility could buy out the private utility. The private utility could come in, pay $5 or $6 million to the public utility and buy out their system. But in any event, however that works at the end of the 5 years, it results in there being about a $10 million capital infusion into the public water utility, which in addition to providing wastewater to the peninsula, that capital infusion will ultimately, at the end of that period, strengthen the financial position of the public utility, which benefits everybody, whether you live inside the project area or you live outside. To this, we will, as we get toward the end of the year, and we have more definitive information about the wastewater treatment system, I will, if it looks like everything is still a go, at some point early next year or spring when we have enough information to go into detail, I will come over and I will hold a special discussion just about the issue. We'll bring the plans, we'll bring the layouts, we'll bring the maps, and we'll hash out all these issues. I would tell you there are still a couple of issues with the environmental that have to get cleared. There's still a couple of issues on the design. This is not a certainty.